Welcome to the Same Day Podcast, where we discuss driving incremental business growth and other topics related to real estate, property management, and entrepreneurship. Now, to the show at hand.
Matt Zalk here. I'm the host of the Same Day Podcast, where I connect with top business experts and real estate leaders. Past guests include Vondale Burns from Thankless Productions, Chip Gabarino, a local real estate entrepreneur and restaurateur, and Brooke Reuter talking about contract for deed versus lease to own properties. We've also had Will Gilbrecht from Franklin Heating and Air discussing some of the difficulties of growing and scaling a heating and air business. Today's episode is brought to you by Chris Lyles State Farm. Chris Lyles State Farm helps you protect your most precious assets and investments, whether it's your home and auto, investment rental properties, or other valuables. Call Chris Lyles State Farm for a quick and painless phone call that could potentially save you a double-digit percentage on all of your insurance needs. Go to diallyle.com or call his office at 918-878-7771. Today's episode is also brought to you by Keyrenter Property Management. At Keyrenter, we are a full-service property management company helping our clients buy, renovate, and operate real estate assets. We help our clients build wealth while taking the headache out of property management and ownership. You probably know, Elliot, how hard it is to line up contractors to get contracting work done in a reasonable amount of time. In our case, it's after a tenant leaves a property. In your case, it's for build outs and construction generally, like the Santa Fe Square property. It's because contractors are busy and ultimately the work seems to drag on forever, and all that leads to lost rental income or revenue. But at Keyrenter, we line up our dedicated vendors so that turns can happen super quickly and we get more money back into the pockets of our owners. And that is why no matter what rental you have, single family homes, townhomes, condos, apartments, we have the management solutions that you need. To go to keyrenterpmc.com or email us at info@keyrenterpmc.com. Before introducing today's guest, I want to give a big thank you to Chip Gabarino, owner of a number of food concepts in Tulsa, including Lowood, Hodges Bend, Topeka Coffee with a bunch of locations, Saturn Room, and more. He also owns a good amount of commercial real estate and has been instrumental in the transformation of downtown Tulsa, along with Mr. Elliot Nelson, who's joining us today on the pod. Today, as CEO of McNellie's Group, Elliot Nelson oversees strategy, finances, community relations, and key day-to-day decisions for a company that includes over 900 employees. Super impressive. Elliot opened James E. McNellie's Public House in downtown Tulsa in March of 2004. Since then, he's gone on to open 23 restaurants and entertainment venues through his company. Elliot, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being on the pod. I want to start with the history, as you tell it, of McNellie's Group. You guys operate 11 separate concepts, from sports bars to bowling to Korean barbecue, Japanese gastropub, burgers, steaks, super varied concepts. How did all this get started?
I guess it really, I was an English major in college. Thought I was going to go to law school, and intern the summer before my senior year of college was with like a legal aid clinic, and then a local just kind of lawyer in South Bend, Indiana. So I got to look at what a lawyer did every day, and just thought, man, I don't think I can do that with my life. And so I signed up for an entrepreneurship class. And the first day of class, the guy said, all right, take 10 minutes and write down your 5 favorite things in life. He's like, think about it, really kind of think through it. And for me, mine were like beer, food, travel. And so he said, okay, once we finished the exercise, I said, okay, so what we're going to do, your whole class this semester, you're going to write a business plan, figuring out how you make money doing one of the things on your list. And I'd done an exchange in Dublin my junior year and just loved Irish pubs. And so I decided I was going to write a business plan for an Irish pub. My fictional Irish pub, McNellie's, was set in my hometown in Tulsa. And, a lot of that had to do with the one place I knew where to find real estate prices and other things fairly easily to kind of build out a, business plan to get a good grade. As I worked on it, kind of came home, fall break that year, met with a couple of real estate people just to kind of fill in the blanks on what I was doing. Met with a restaurant guy I knew here. Started to really just kind of look at the market. I was like, man, the restaurant scene and the bar scene's really bad here. Like, maybe this isn't that bad idea. And then second semester, my senior year of college, all my friends started getting jobs. London, New York, Chicago. They were going to be bond traders and all these fancy things to make tons of money. And people started asking me what I was going to do, and they're like, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna move home and open a pub. People were like,
Wow.
yes, it's a great idea. I mean, yeah, this is 22 years old. It's more of a party trick than anything. But so I moved home after college and decided I was gonna try and open a pub. And yeah, I didn't know anything about the restaurant business really. So I got a job waiting tables and just started setting about trying to figure out, how to raise money, how to take out an SBA loan. And as I kind of worked on it, I decided I thought it was important to be downtown. That you know, my favorite places to hang out, New York, Chicago, and other places. The best time at a pub is right after work, right? I mean, all the people spill out of an office, they go straight to a pub and kind of continue on their day, and that's when
Right.
it really feels alive. And I thought that was important, right? So I wanted something downtown where we caught all those people coming out of work to where we'd be a place where the day would continue. So found the building. Well, I signed the building we're in. It was actually the fourth building I'd negotiated a lease on. The other ones all fell through for various reasons. And we started construction in December 2002, and it was I don't know, 3 feet of water in the basement. The whole thing was covered in mold. There was nothing there, and it took 15 months to put it back together. We opened March 11th, 2004, and I guess the rest is history.
You got some grit from the start.
Yeah.
Where did you wait tables while you were building this out?
A place called Sobo Loco. It's actually now where D'Alessandro's is, 18th in Boston.
Got it. Love D'Alessandro's too. When I was teaching, when I graduated from college, I went on a 3-year sabbatical around the world teaching scuba diving and traveling and having a good time. And the one thing that people always said when they were teaching scuba diving was, when I grow up, I'm going to own a dive shop. And all the people that own dive shops said, if you love diving, don't own a dive shop. That's the worst idea and the worst way to ruin your enjoyment of this thing. So when your professor was saying, take 5 things you love and build a business plan around it, was there ever any thought that, like, I love eating and I love drinking beer, but doing this for a living would ruin all that?
Yeah, I mean, his thesis was that if you really find something you're passionate about, that you never really work, right? That you just kind of every day is a passion project and you get up excited to do it. And so I think that's, it's ebbed and flowed over the years. But I think for me, when we started McNellie's, one of the things I was really passionate about was craft beer. And there was nobody in town really doing craft beer in a major way. And so my premise was that if I beat everybody else to the multi-tap craft beer thing, that we would be the place in town for craft beer. And I thought that would be enough to kind of carry this. And that turned out to be true. But so the original guy hired to run the kitchen. I just said, look, man, I don't really care about the menu. I don't, just give me a really good hamburger and I think the beer will carry us. Right. And so that's kind of, the food stuff kind of evolved, right? Because after we did McNellie's, we did 3 bars before we built another restaurant. So we had a bar called the Continental, which is now McNellie's Sidebar. We opened the Colony over on Harvard, but did both those projects in 2006. And then we opened the Tiny Lounge, which is where that's where Bohemia is now, right across the street from Lowood. And it was amazing. It was lightning in a bottle, but it was always destined to burn out. It was too much. It was too much fun. So we had those 3, and then we opened up Guapo's across the street from McNellie's, and that was kind of the first time we really built a food first establishment, and we really stubbed our toe. I mean, we weren't good at it, and I had the wrong people in the wrong places, and that one almost brought the whole thing crashing down.
Wow.
Luckily we opened a McNellie's in Oklahoma City around the same time, and it made money day one. And so that allowed us to at least bought us some time before I reorganized the whole capital stack and brought in some equity guys to kind of right the ship. But it was the whole food piece of it to me was something that came at later, right? Early on, it was just about serving people craft beer,
right?
And a place that felt good.
How did McNellie's Oklahoma City do well from day one? Was it riding the wave of the Tulsa location?
Yeah, a little bit, but more than anything, I nailed the location down there, and I went over with a broker, and I found this building. It was boarded up, and the guy was like, it's like, oh, nobody wants to be here. It was a drugstore. It'd been a drugstore for 60 years, 70 years, something like that. All the drugstore implements were still in place. It's like, well, somebody's going to redevelop this building, and so the building. Geographically, think of it as like 18th and Boston and Tulsa. It was right on the cusp of their big old neighborhood, but close to downtown. And at that point, you had Bricktown, but locals didn't engage with Bricktown.
Yeah.
And so my kind of idea was, well, this is going to be on everybody's way home. And part of what made it great is that I signed that lease in 2005. We ended up until 2008. The building changed hands a couple of times before we finally got it going. And so that we had a lot of kind of built up, demand and anticipation, and the location was just right. We're still there.
Yeah.
And I think, this year might end up being a record year for us there. And we've now kind of built out other stuff in that neighborhood. There's a faster roll in the Dust Bowl in that neighborhood too.
Yeah. Amazing. What do you see as the unique opportunities and challenges of building a business in Tulsa, and how has the landscape evolved over the years?
Yeah. I mean, there's certain things like our early challenges, were just our geography. Where we chose to do business was a challenge, right? We weren't just trying to market the restaurant and operate a restaurant. We were also trying to build a neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So you're creating a whole new destination for people, which was hard, right? Which is why we kind of built that idea that we were constantly opening new concepts and new things to try and appeal to different demographics to make the pie grow and make the neighborhood more busy. And so those are some of the early challenges, was just getting people used to interacting with downtown Tulsa. I still remember one of the kind of coolest articles ever about the pub was very early on. It was an op-ed in the Tulsa World, but it was just by guys like, man, I was driving home on a Wednesday and there were cars passing me to come back downtown. And I was just trying to figure out where they were going. And he followed to burger night, right? I mean, like, we really struggled to make money the first 18 months or so. But that concept of $3 burger night back in the day was the thing that gave us one. Friday and Saturday bar business was always good. But that gave us one more day a week where we were really busy. And that kind of helped turn the tide, really stabilize us financially to where we could start to grow and become profitable and really start to manage the business in a way to make money as opposed to just trying to survive. So, back then the challenges were just, there was nobody here.
Yeah.
I'd say now the challenges, especially in the restaurant and bar business, is that we don't have a lot of transient customers, right? So there's no real tourism to speak of. And so that creates some issues, I think, in the price elasticity in our market. You don't have a lot of people coming through who are just coming here just to go out and eat and drink and spend a weekend. And that's changing a little bit, but it's not the equivalent of like, if you're in Austin or somewhere,
yeah,
you can fill your restaurant 7 days a week with people who don't live in Austin, right? And we don't have that. We're counting on the same people day in and day out to come in and spend money. And so that creates some pressures on your price point. It creates pressures on how you manage your staff and some other things too, to make sure people are always getting the same face and consistent service. And, it's just, it's different, right? I mean, Tulsa's a big city, but it's not a tourism destination. We don't have a ton of expense account business either. To the extent there isn't any, it's usually oil and gas stuff. And so we ebb and flow with oil and gas. When oil's good, the expense account business is great. When oil's bad, it's non-existent. So,
what's expense account? I mean, we do our monthly Keyrenter dinner down at McNellie's, I would say at least probably every month, if not every other month. And I saw another bill hit the credit card yesterday from our maintenance team who was down there. And I was wondering why they were drinking whiskey in the middle of the day. That's a different subject. But is there a business can open up an expense account like a build in arrears type thing? Or
no, more we just track, so when you get a credit card statement, you can track what kind of cards are coming through. And so you can see what the corporate card spend is. So that'd be like an Amex corporate card or, some other corporate cards. And you can kind of get an idea who's running it through a business account as opposed to what's just a personal credit card.
Right. Interesting. So you talk about, the challenge of building a neighborhood, not just the restaurant concept. When I think about it, and I've only been in Tulsa since 2017. Back then, Spaghetti Warehouse was closed. That building's since been torn down, but I don't have the longevity of tenure and experience. But realistically, when I think about it, I kind of think about it as a concept desert downtown. There weren't a ton of people that went down there. It wasn't a destination, but you guys and the website describes McNellie's original location, which is its current location, as a lonely and rather desolate corner of downtown Tulsa, which I love the poetic nature of that statement. But how did you think about the fact that you were cannibalizing your own traffic, potentially your own restaurant customers, in order to grow the pie, as you said, that you have to create that investment in order to grow the pie, but you're also taking away from your own client base at some level?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it for us was the business begets more business, and that as people came down and interacted, they got more comfortable with it, right? And like, there's a big segment of the population that doesn't want to go to McNellie's. They don't drink beer. They don't want to be in a pub. But you know what? they might really like sushi. So they go to Yokozuna. And then when they're down here, they're like, oh, I didn't even know that place was there. And, just trying to get as we built it out, so we used to track it actually. When we opened McNellie's, there were 11 places. I think we were the 12th place you could like get a meal downtown. And that included like Billy's on the Square, Mexicali, Spaghetti Warehouse, a bunch of restaurants kind of back in the central business district. And then we stopped keeping track around 2012 or so. And by then there were like 120 restaurants, bars, places to eat, coffee shops. I mean, it was crazy, right? And then the majority of that got built from kind of 2009 on. So I always joke with the GKFF guys, they take all the credit for Guthrie Green and how great it is. We had 7 restaurants open and operating in downtown before they started Guthrie. So I always tell them thanks for coming to save us all.
What?
So that idea for us was always, my running joke was I built a neighborhood pub and then I had to build a neighborhood, right? And so to build a neighborhood, we needed family-friendly places. The Dust Bowl we built because we needed a place where you could, have some kind of entertainment that wasn't just eating. Faster Hall we built because we needed a place where we could host more live music. And at that point, we opened that in 2009, I think, or 2010 maybe. Where McNellie's was no longer the hip, cool place for young people. We needed something a younger crowd, right? And then we built Eldridge Park, because the ballpark was there, and people said there needs to be a sports bar. And when we did the Tavern, we committed to a higher price point. It was far and away the most expensive restaurant downtown. We did it, which I think at this point it's still on the upper end, but nowhere near what some other people are getting, including ourselves as a whole. But we committed to pseudo finer dining there because we're like, man, you got to be able to get a good meal down here too, right? It can't just all be commodity dining. And we committed to late nights. We left that place open until 11 o'clock, 7 days a week, and 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. Because in my mind, just my personal opinion is like, we're not a real city, and we're certainly not a good city if you can't get a really good meal past 9 o'clock, right? It's just something that needs to exist. 100%. We lost a shit ton of money trying to prove that point, but it needed to happen, right? So there's a lot of that just kind of, early on, my passion was beer and pubs and all this stuff. And at some point, I realized that my passion was more just my hometown, right? Making my hometown a better place to live. And once I finally kind of got my head around that as kind of my purpose statement for what I was doing, that helped me kind of, recalibrate and focus on some of the stuff that would, not always just being bottom line driven and not even always just trying to, build the next restaurant, but trying to build a restaurant that would add to the conversation, that would fill a need, and would make, downtown and the city at large a better place to be.
And how does that vision extend to Little Rock and Oklahoma City when they're not your town?
So Oklahoma City, we were the tip of the spear in that neighborhood. It's now probably, they refer to it as Midtown Oklahoma City, and there's some great developers there who are our landlords that have kind of built out most of that stuff. So that neighborhood is really robust now, but we were the tip of the spear going in there, right? We created a neighborhood there too with the pub, and Little Rock, we did the same thing. And honestly, I mean, the jury's still out on Little Rock. We might have been too early, right? We might have tried too hard to do that, too far away from home. But that's okay, because to me, at the end of the day, I would rather do something that I believe in, that I think is gonna help propel a place forward, than just go lease real estate in the highest traffic area and look at traffic counts and home demographics. I mean, and we've done that to some success, but it's not what I want to do.
Yeah, it's community development.
Yeah.
How do you view then other restaurateurs? Are they competition, or are they synergistic to the general growth of the scene?
Yeah, man, I think generally speaking, they're synergistic, right? Especially so, I'm friends with a lot of them, and you never want to every once in a while, somebody that you don't like will try to do exactly what you're doing and rip it off. I mean, we heard about somebody who said they were building a restaurant to put one of ours out of business. I'm like, really? This shit's hard enough as it is, right? But generally speaking, when we do a new concept, we'll try to look around and say, what are other people doing, and we don't want to step on any toes and do something that's very similar, right? And I think most people do that. You all, these are I think a lot of restaurant people view themselves as artistic people that want to create something new in the world. So you certainly don't want to do something that looks like a direct ripoff or
Yeah.
direct competition with somebody else in the market. You kind of want to put your own stamp on it and make it unique, and hopefully everybody offers something that appeals to customers in a way that they patronize all the places. But
What's your view on the dining scene in Tulsa and what we need more of to compete with the food scenes in other great American cities? I agree. Late dining is an important one.
Yeah, late dining is important, right? I mean, we're committed to that at the Tavern and the Bull, the McNellie's to some extent. We will stay open late. Mr. Kim's, we leave open late. I honestly, I think our dining scene is really good. I think we punch way above our weight. More than anything, we just haven't gotten a lot of press, right? And I think part of what holds us back is we don't have a really robust hotel scene. So as you talk about a place where people would go somewhere to dine, like, man, I think you could come here and eat for 3 or 4 days and eat some world-class food.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people know that, right? Because it hasn't been written up a lot like that. So I think that's a challenge. And always we're going to have staffing challenges too in our dining scene, and that just has to do a lot with, if you look at our demographic trends, a lot of young people that grew up in Tulsa leave, right? And so you look at somewhere like Austin, your server at wherever restaurant you're in might have a master's degree and just move to Austin just because they want to live in Austin, right? And that's what's going to wait tables just to be there. We don't have a lot of people coming to Tulsa just to be here, right? And so because of that, we don't have a really robust service industry. I mean, we have a great staff, right? I mean, I love our people, but there's not just a ton of young people here just clamoring to be part of the scene in Tulsa and willing to wait tables and bartend and other things to be here, right? And that's something that I think it holds us back a little bit, right? Just not. I mean, if you had people like that here, and it's getting better.
Has Tulsa Remote helped with all?
I think you'd be able to build more stuff. What?
Has Tulsa Remote helped with any of that? That people are coming with a remote job and they have a spouse or they have a sibling?
Yeah, not really. Not that we can tell anyway. Because I think most people come here and already have a captive job, and that's part of the application process. So, but I think part of that is you have a lot of people just going to be somewhere, then they fall in love with it and they want to do their own thing, right? And so that's just the amount of young people in the city. Our demographics are a challenge. And
so you mentioned the shortage of labor. I mean, it's a tough time to be in the restaurant industry generally. Restaurant staff is chronically short, and going everywhere. I've been in the last couple of months in 15 or 20 cities in America, and you see these signs everywhere that say, be patient with our staff. It's hard enough to keep them. Don't yell at them, that kind of stuff. And then food prices are skyrocketing. COVID was obviously an incredibly difficult time. What are you doing to combat some of those difficulties in all your markets?
Yeah. I mean, since the last couple of years, our average commodity's gone up 30%, something like that. I can't remember. Yeah. We track those numbers all the time. Our average labor hour has gone up also about 25%, and then our labor efficiency's gone down. I think last we looked, we were closing on it, but our labor efficiency was down like 15%. So it was taking us 15% more labor to produce the same amount of sales. So, and a lot of that's just people getting used to doing it again after COVID. But, so I mean, for us, I mean, every couple places we've tried to change service models, tweak them a little bit, try and make them more efficient. But I think overall, you raise prices, but you only raise them so much before you've kind of priced yourself out.
Right.
People don't want to spend the money. So a lot of it's just management, right? Managing the cost better, making sure we have less waste, managing the labor better, making sure that we don't have a lot of wasted hours for people coming in at times when it's not busy yet. And so it's so much of it is just grinding away at the kind of minute details to make sure that you've paired everything you can around the edges, and then you hope you're delivering a good enough product at a good enough price that your customers come in, right? I mean, it's the same thing it's always been. If we do a really good job with our food and our service and our facilities, the rest of it kind of takes care of itself, right? I mean, you got to keep an eye on it, you got to manage it, and you'll know when you have something that didn't work, right? I mean, the market will tell
Yeah.
But so long as you hit the concept right and the pricing is right, the rest of it's, it hopefully takes care of itself. I mean, red light chicken, which we did last summer, is a great example. We had a price wrong, right? And part of the problem was we priced it at the top of the chicken commodity market. So we priced it how we had to. But then the customers told us really quick it was too expensive. So we moved everything around, adjusted how many sides you got, how many pieces. I mean, just, we tinkered with everything until we found a place where suddenly you could see in the online reviews and the customer velocity and other things like, oh, okay, now we found the
Yeah.
And so it's
So
an art.
sticking on that, what have you learned in your entrepreneurial career about failing fast?
Yeah, we're better at that now than we used to be, right? Yeah, and part of that's just knowing when something's not working, right? You have to pay attention. You have to listen. Have to listen to what the market's telling you. I think one of the ones for us that we probably, the Dilly Diner was originally the Dilly Deli when we built it. And we modeled it after a place in Ann Arbor, Michigan called Zingerman's. Zingerman's probably the best deli in America. And
Love that.
Zingerman's uses a bunch of really high-end meat. They use locally sourced produce. They use all this shit. The sandwiches are amazing, right? So that's what we wanted. We had a high bar for it. We're like, we want to make some amazing stuff. And so, to do that, you got to charge $13, $14 a sandwich. I think Zingerman's is up to $20 these days on their sandwiches. But the market wasn't ready. And we got, online reviews like, well, I can get a Subway sandwich for $5. And you'd try to argue with somebody, but yeah, but this is so much. But it didn't matter, right? Yeah. Because the sandwich expectation in the market was, I go to Bill and Roost or Subway for a sandwich, and if you want my sandwich business, you need to be at that price point, right? So we had to, but we reacted. We took too long to react. We finally did. Just gutted it, right? But we learned, right?
Yeah.
Learned how far we can push it and to listen. So whenever we do a new concept now, we try to listen a lot, and we put our kind of senior management on the floor every night for the first month or so to talk to people and get feedback, and then pay attention a lot to social media channels and reviews and things, and just see where you can find threads. I mean, that people will tell you.
You think people are honest when your senior management team's out on the floor? People are honest about their real-time feedback, or do they?
Well, so part of that is we will fill the places with people we know a lot too. Right? I mean, so some of our soft opening stuff, it's friends and family, but we also have certain people we always make sure go in because we know what they'll tell us. Yeah. And then it's also kind of looking around the dining room for people who are our customers at other places, friendly faces, because they'll tell you too. They've already kind of bought into supporting our company, and so you get it. But yeah, you're right. A lot of times you won't get it, but also part of that is when you do it long enough and you know how to read somebody, you can tell somebody's bullshitting you too, right? So when you ask the question, they give you an answer, and you're like, oh, that guy's lying to me, right? and some of that is, you can just stand in a dining room and read people's faces, right? You can I can stand in a corner dining room and I can watch people read the menus and tell you whether or not the prices are too high or whether or not they're happy about it. And I mean, it's a lot of it's just sitting around and reading the faces and knowing how to read the kind of subliminal signals from people when you ask them a question they don't want to say the truth.
Yeah. What's your view on real estate, on the ownership of real estate, where the restaurant concepts, where you have restaurant concepts versus the long-term rental?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to own it whenever you can, right? I mean, if you look at the just kind of return on what you would spend in rent, if you can allocate those rent payments to principal reduction on a mortgage, at some point, you build some net equity in it. And I think that, when you have a restaurant, so part of you got to look at, what do you have an exit plan? I mean, one of my really good friends, a restaurateur in Atlanta, he always jokes his exit plan is the grave, right? And it's just kind of how it feels sometimes when you're running independent restaurants. So, part of it for me, and I try to encourage other people to do this, is buy the real estate when you can, because at some point you might be done with it, be tired. There's not a real robust market to sell one-off restaurants, right? But if you own the real estate and has value in the real estate, at least you have an asset you can sell, right? Yeah. Or maybe an asset to where you can sign a lease with somebody else and get a residual income, right? But It's hard for us. We don't own a ton of our real estate. We try to, but it's just the neighborhoods I want to be in. A lot of times the real estate has been held long term by people and they just don't want to, like at McNellie's, my landlord has told me that I can buy it from his estate, right? So I got to right of first refusal from his estate. I mean, he's great. I love it. I wouldn't be in business without him. So, you can't really complain, but
yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your real estate development, because you've transitioned in a pretty significant way from not from restaurants, but adding real estate to your portfolio of businesses that you run. You've got Santa Fe Square, which is a beautiful new mixed-use development downtown. It's got Class A office, multifamily, retail parking. Yep. What's your vision? Who's going to fill these units? How do you see it transforming the downtown Tulsa area and its physical impact and its potential to revitalize the local community?
Yeah, so that's that project. I first envisioned it when I was at McNellie's back, like when we first opened, right? It was kind of like, next door to me was a welding shop. There was a bookbinder across the street. We were in a very industrial area. And for a long time, I looked at that lot and I thought, man, this has got to be something, right? And you look at Google Earth, it's about that lot's almost the same size as the West Village in Dallas, which is, was a really successful mixed-use deal when it was built. So I had a friend draw some, sketch out what it might look like, who strangely enough ended up being the architect 20 years later when we did it. But,
Wait, so you've owned that land for a long time?
No. So I started trying to buy it in 2006 or 7 and finally got together a price in 2008, and then the world fell apart. And then came back around 2015, started working on buying it, put together a group of people. And that, was I knew how to, at that point, I knew how to put together the public financing, the incentive package, which is what it really took. And I was really well versed in it because I chaired a few boards at the city and just kind of knew how it worked. And so we bought that. But to me, it's about anchoring the east end of downtown. I mentioned Guthrie Green earlier. The arts district has a ton of investment from philanthropies that really make that neighborhood incredible. And we don't have that over here in the Blue Dome, right on the east side. And then on the west side of town, obviously you got the arena. And so for me, it was trying to build something of enough significance to anchor this side of town. And I'd always felt we were at risk over here of kind of fading away because other things were going to get built. And so I thought it was important to kind of give the neighborhood some substance. And in that we built there's a public plaza. It's about it's like 240 feet long by 75 feet deep. It'll be run by restaurants. And so, you got 184 units with about 30,000 feet of retail below it. And then the office is up. And I think we're close. We have a couple of deals pending, but we're close to being almost 100% leased in the office.
Wow. Wow.
And then 720 parking spaces there, which will service everything. So, it'll end up being, Hotel Indigo, we sold in that dirt, so they were part of the deal too. And so if you included Indigo and then all our stuff and the existing building, we got spent rehab on that. It's a $180 million mixed use development, which is the biggest one anybody's ever done in town. So, it's kind of crazy.
Who's coming in to fill some of those spots, if you can discuss?
The offices.
Yeah.
So the office is Hall Estel has the top 2 floors.
Beautiful.
And then the next 3 floors are filled by what was Laredo Petroleum, which is now, I think it's Midel. They changed their name. But and then CB Richard Ellis is going to take part of the remaining floor. And then we have a bank who's looking at taking the rest of that floor in a branch.
So you're creating your own demand for McNellie's and for Yokozuna and
that's part of it, right? You need you need people officing over here. You need that kind of weight that really creates traffic. So I spent probably too much time over the years, learning about urban development and how cities have kind of redone themselves. And so it's to me, this is the end. It'll be McNellie's turns 20 years old next March, and we'll have that project done next probably June or July. So I kind of
it's coming along nicely.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. And so I kind of see that as the end of like a 20-year project, right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
So then you kind of say, okay, well, that was a good 20 years. So what are we going to do next, right? And
I mean, it's amazing that that's right on the Tulsa Tough Path, the bike race, and there for so many years it was just a dirt lot. And it's just really wild.
But the Tulsa Tough stuff. It's interesting. You look back, like Tulsa Tough was started by one of my best friends, right? So that path is where it is because he was using our restaurants to do stuff and serve. I mean, so it's kind of funny to see the way it's all evolved.
Now that I think about it, Tulsa, the path is like a food tour, like a pub crawl of the McNellie's brand restaurants.
And we're still one of the major sponsors, so we have to pay for it now. Back in the day, it was just doing us a solid, but
What can the community expect from Santa Fe Square in terms of new dining and entertaining experiences?
Yes, we're finally going to do an Italian restaurant there for McNellie's group.
Nice.
I think that'll be, we have 2 more restaurants opening this year. One's a steakhouse deal, and then actually we might open 2 steakhouses this year. One on Brookside, one out in Jinx, and then we're doing a deal at 18th and Cincinnati, which is going to become an all-day restaurant and a little pub. So that'll put us up to, I think that'll be 17 total different concepts.
Wow.
And then we'll finally do Italian at Santa Fe. So that'll be
you'll have the full suite.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. We've always put off doing an Italian restaurant, so we thought we had the right spot. So I think it's gonna be really cool. And then we have a couple other kind of prominent local people. Leases are out right now, so we don't have them signed yet, but we're negotiating leases and
for entertainment stuff or for restaurants.
Restaurants. Yeah. So we have somebody doing a high-end seafood place, another person doing
nice
wine, cocktails, and tapas, and then it looks like we might have a high-end Mexican restaurant as well. And so that'll all ring that plaza. And the plaza, we're going to program. We'll do a lot of events out there, whether that be wine and beer festivals or farmers markets or anything else. And then I've designed the plaza in a way where we've got big stanchions built in for those huge umbrellas you see kind of in Europe. And so we'll be able to put a canopy over the outdoor dining in the summer. And then we've also, we're going to put in hard plumb gas everywhere so we can then go back with heaters in the winter. So I think we'll be able to get a lot of use of the plaza year round, which would be a big deal. And so I'm really excited about it.
Just more places to hang out. I mean, that's what Tulsa needs and is needed, and it gets from your concepts is more places to just spend time and money, which is important.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, to me, like, some of like in Europe, you'll go through some of those plazas and things, and they'll just have like a DJ out there, just on a Friday. I think we'll do some of that stuff too. Kind of plan some kind of public music and other things that just kind of draw people to it, which I think will be really important.
Who do you look at nationally, locally, I guess globally, in terms of inspiration, restaurateurs, developers that you've admired and maybe have mentored you and you've kind of followed their lead at some level?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like restaurant people, I mean, when you do what I do, do multi concepts and stuff. I mean, Richard Melman's always been the best. He's let us entertain you in Chicago. Danny Meyer, New York. Somebody people always do. Steven Starr, Philadelphia is incredible. So there's a handful of kind of like just Sam Fox at this point too. You'd say out of Phoenix. So there's a handful of kind of luminary people who do multi concept restaurant development the way we do it that you always kind of look up to and benchmark against and kind of see what they're doing. So I mean, but it's, I don't know. There's also, the one-off restaurants you go to that are just incredible too, that you wish you could capture, right? I mean, like in New York, I mean, I always eat at Balthazar. I think it's one of the greatest rooms in the world, right? And that guy, he owns a couple of places, but that. So I think part of it too is just recognizing good design when you see it and trying to recapture that.
Sure.
In terms of developers, I talk to other developers, but the things I do they don't pencil that well, right? So I do it more as a passion. So that my real estate friends kind of like laugh at me and like, why would you do that? I'm like, I don't know. It just feels like it's what needs to be done. Right? So
you're developing a city.
Yeah, right. We develop a lot of old buildings and stuff, right? I mean, there are people like the guy Goldman who he redid Soho and then redid a lot of stuff in Miami before he passed away, and his daughter's now doing that stuff, the Wynwood stuff. So there are people like that around you see that have just committed their lives to redoing neighborhoods. I mean, Michael Sager just passed away recently. I've never met Michael.
No.
He was somebody I talked to a lot. I mean, he was one of the early people down here doing this stuff. He was a bit of a controversial guy to some people, but
wasn't he? It was originally David Sharp and Michael Sager that owned a lot of the stuff down.
Sharp's the other guy, right? And I still talk to David a fair amount. David's great. He's been really good to me over the years. And I think that I look at David, he's a happy guy, right? I mean, like super smart, probably could have, made a ton more money. He's done great. I mean, don't feel sorry for David, but he did all this stuff because he loved it, right? It was a passion for him. And he bought those buildings when nobody wanted them, and he just cared about them and cared about old buildings and liked it. And so I talk to people like that who just kind of do things because it's what they believe they should be doing as a passion, and try to draw some inspiration from that. I mean, I talk to a lot of real estate people that, if it doesn't work on a certain cap rate, they can't get, and they, model all these exits. And I just don't.
More about belief and passion.
As soon as I get into doing that stuff, I'm just like, I've lost it, right? I lose the passion. I just don't care. I mean, we have a really great site that I'm working on for 6 or 7 years that I think I want to build a hotel. And people are like, man, it's a terrible idea. You can make way more money building multifamily and retail.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
But we need hotels. We need good hotel
We
concepts.
need a cool hotel, right? So, who else is going to do it? So.
Tell us a story. Were you involved in the building where Dilly Diner is when it was a 2-story and had some issues, or no? That was a Sager project.
But I've talked to David about it.
David.
It was, I think it might have even been 3 stories originally. It was a hotel. It burned down.
Yeah, it was like a day hotel or something, kind of for day labor.
Yeah, so a lot of David's work. So, if you ever get, you probably can't talk David into being on a podcast, but his stories when he bought all this stuff, they were all like hourly hotels, and so. Above the tavern was an hourly hotel. That building was above the porn store. 3rd and Elgin was a hotel he used to run. And so every morning he would come down and collect all the cash. And
God!
And the people he was dealing with, and like the
unsavory.
Where Red Light Chicken was a brothel, and it was the last brothel running in Tulsa. They didn't shut it down until '78.
Is that why you called it Red Light Chicken?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The first street was the Red Light District, and actually upstairs at McNellie's one of this kind of game room at McNellie's, that was a brothel too at one point. And so, they didn't effectively shut down all the brothels till the late '70s.
Wow.
They were still operating, and
amazing. Sidebar, where do you eat dim sum? Anywhere good in town to?
And there was that spot on 11th. It was okay. We're actually starting to do it every Sunday morning at Mr. Kim's. So Ben,
are you?
Yeah.
Yes, I've longed for I want like a Din Tai Fung, like just a industrial where these people with their tiny hands are making handmade dim sum. I think it's a concept out of, I don't know, is it out of Hong Kong or Singapore or Malaysia somewhere? But that, I mean, just like where you can eat 50 dim sum, The
cart's just always coming by, dropping stuff off. Yeah. It's not. We're not gonna be able to do it to that scale, but. So Ben, our chef, he just got a beard nomination. He's great. He's kind of a passion project to do the dim sum over there. So
love it. So that's Sundays?
Sunday mornings, yeah.
Love that. And like full like pork and chive, chicken and chive, like a full suite of them?
Yeah, I can't remember how many dumplings he had on there the other day. And I know the soup dumplings he was really excited about. Those were coming out well. And so
yeah, love it.
He's still tinkering with it, but he was pretty excited about it.
Today, Elliot Nelson is the CEO of McNellie's Group. He oversees strategy, finances, community relations, and key day-to-day decisions for a company that includes over 900 employees and growing, it sounds, from this conversation that we've had. He opened McNellie's Public House in downtown Tulsa in March of 2004, and since then he's gone on to open 23 other restaurant concepts, entertainment venues, and a bunch of commercial real estate stuff, which is exciting for our fair city. Elliot, any final words? If people want to get in touch with you, they want to invest money or they want to do anything else, is that an option?
Yeah. They don't want to invest money with me, but please come drink a beer, right? So I can repurpose that into something else that won't make any money. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.
To talk about Tulsa, and I actually hear a lot of great things about what you're doing, and so I'm just happy other people, talented people, are here in town, help move this place forward.
That's a huge,
it's
huge
come
factor.
a long way. It's come a long way in the last 20 years, and honestly, I think we got a lot more room to grow. I used to joke with people that I thought I could build enough stuff and make it cool enough where my friends who had moved away would want to come back. And
that's the dream.
That turned out to be an aggressive timeline, but now hopefully if I do enough and build it up cool enough, maybe my kids will want to come back. And that not that they all will, but that's the goal, is to make it a world-class city where it's not
right.
You don't have to apologize for living here, right? It's a choice, and people are excited to be here. And I think we're getting there. And so that's thanks to you and a bunch of other people who've moved in and are helping bring it up.
100%. I feel like in the last couple of years, it's seen such dramatic change. And from 2017, I first came here in February of 2017. It was a beautiful day, 40 degrees and sunny, kind of like today, maybe a little bit colder. And I was like, this place has amazing potential, and I'm happy to live here. So Tulsa's a great town. I hope everybody else sees that. That's some point.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah.
Elliot, thank you for being on the pod.
You don't want to deal with much traffic. Yeah.
That's true. You have to remind yourself when you go down on Friday night, when you can't find a parking spot, you're like, this is what you've been hoping for. Don't complain about it now.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to street park and walk 15 feet to the restaurant you're going to. Anyways, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Same Day Podcast. Tune in to a new show each week and be sure to subscribe to get future episodes.